to another episode of Corporate CPR, where we breathe life into your organization, projects, and processes, giving you insights to recovery and avoiding corporate mortality events. Danna is a business growth strategist and CEO of MarketAtomy LLC. Her passion is working with small first stage entrepreneurs to ensure that they start out on the right foot and stay on the path to financial freedom. Known as the business birthing specialist, Danna understands the intricacies involved in starting and running a successful business. Her efforts extend beyond the initial strategy planning process on into the implementation and monitoring phase. She has recently launched the first e-learning environment specifically targeting small micro businesses called MarketAtomy Academy. A graduate of the University of Central Florida's College of Business, Danna holds a degree in both marketing and management information systems. She brings more than 40 years of strategic planning expertise in business structures, marketing, and business development, both nationally and internationally. Danna is not only a professional business growth strategist, but is a public speaker and best-selling author on Amazon. She's published 5 books. The latest, Social or Sociopathic, dropped May 17th of this year. Welcome, Danna.
Thank you, Jana. Jana.
I know when we're on other calls together, I'm always like, "Huh, me?" And then I'm like, "Oh no,
really. And Dana. Dana's the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad to be here, Jana. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great topic. Every year, every company, if it goes through the check boxes of having to relook at their strategy, say if they're on track, determine if they need to get tweaks, and then they seem to put it on the shelf for another year. At least, well, that's what I've seen in a lot of companies. So, tell me what the trend is right now with corporate effectively executing corporate strategy.
Well, the trend is everything's upside down, in all honesty, because of COVID. But now is the time when we should be thinking about 2022, primarily because most companies, their fiscal years end October, November, December. And strategy is not something that can be done in one day or whatever. You need to allow, a good week to be able to do that strategy or more. And especially what's important is you want to include all levels, all divisions within your company in this strategy process. So those are the primary things. The other things that I see that are changing is we're moving more towards, we're already in it, but the next 12 months will focus a great deal on strengthening your virtual engagement, your technology platforms, your systems, your processes, etc.
And why is it important that companies even do this? I know it's kind of a basic question, and everybody probably has an answer to that question. But in your mind, what is the imperative here that they have to get their strategy done? It's not just a nice to have. It's not just a should do. It's a strategic imperative. Why is that?
Number one, save money. Okay. The strategy is built on what your overall vision is for your company. And a lot of times what happens is you get so wrapped up in the day-to-day activities that you forget about where is it you're going with your business. And so when you sit down and you do that 12-month strategic planning, what you're doing is you're taking out a chunk of what that vision is and what you're going to accomplish over the next 12 months that's going to get you closer to what that vision is. All right. And with what happened with COVID, it threw us completely behind the 8 ball, because a lot of companies, what they ended up having to do is spend the next 3-4 months when COVID kicked in, just learning the technology that they needed in order to be able to continue business as usual. All right. I know that with my sister, who is a professor at Daytona State College, she called me in a panic. She says, I've got to take my classes online next week. I can't do them in the classroom anymore. And she had no idea what to do. So a lot of companies did face this moving forward. There were also a lot of companies that were completely set up for it at the same time. So they did not run into the same issues as a lot of these companies who, so.
When people, sit down and start their strategy, well, so you mentioned that we should really, like, the strategy shouldn't just be written top down. Like, how do you approach corporations writing a strategy in order to make it effective?
Well, I have a six-phased approach to I wouldn't call it phases. Okay, there's 6 components that go into the strategy process. Okay, and then it's a 3-phased approach. Okay, beginning with the large picture, which I call the macro picture.
Okay.
What we're doing there is we are identifying, okay, what are my overall goals for the next 12 months? And I always start with revenue, because revenue is what we're looking to do anyway. Okay,
Yep.
we're looking to, increase our sales. So we start with revenue, and then what we do is we break it down into products, product introductions, product packaging, things like that, customers, new customers that we plan on going after, who are we going to strategically partner with, how are we going to expand our market, all at a very high level view. How are we going to reach that dollar amount that we want to reach by the end of 12 months? So we start with the macro view. Once we've got a fairly decent outline of what's going to contribute to that revenue goal, then we start breaking it down into what I call meso level. This is where we get into the objectives, and we set our timeline and our budget for it. We break it down quarterly. And then finally, we move into the micro level, which is where we get into the monthly tactical action steps. The responsibilities are assigned, things like that. And the monitoring starts taking place. So what we do is we work with the big picture and we kind of boil it down. Now, we may not in the first meeting do the entire year. We may do quarter by quarter is what we do, because we want to make sure that we're able to shift and pivot if need be quickly.
Absolutely. It reminds me of the OKRs, and how, you really look at OKRs on a quarter by quarter basis. And in an OKR strategy, there's a couple of different strategies. There's one where the goals are cascaded down versus people build their goals and tie them into the corporate goals or the manager's goals. But what I find interesting is, Marcus Buckingham put out a book about nine ways companies fail, or something of it. And one of his comments was cascading goals. And the point around that was that he was saying people don't have ownership. They don't like being told what they have to do. They want to create their own meaning. But I feel that there is a balance between, kind of that old school being told, okay, you have to pick, 3 goals that align to this specific metric or something, versus saying, here's the corporate goal broken down. How is what you do going to tie back to that? I mean, what are your thoughts there? Like, how do you give people autonomy, or, that they over their growth, but still make sure everybody is aligned in the organization?
And I fully agree with that. Okay, you do have the corporate goals, but the people who are interacting with the customers and that customer experience, they're the ones who are going to really know how to build that strategy within their divisions. And it, again, just like we are fitting our corporate goals to our long-term vision, they need to be able to work their division into the overall corporate goals for that year. So they need to be aligned, and it needs to be monitored on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, we all know what happens. Whatever's not monitored is not done.
Because what happens is when you don't monitor it, when you don't look at it, you don't feel as though, or you don't see the advances that you are making because they're small increments. But when you look at it after 12 months, you realize, oh my God, we did all of this in 1 year. When I used to sit down with my clients and we do just a mind mapping session, okay? And this was working with, small businesses. And we'd sit there and I would spend a good 4 hours going through asking questions, to kind of get a feel for where they are in their business. And within those 4 hours, I was building a mind map. And when I was done, we could look at it and they say, oh my God, that's my business. See, what it is it was always up here. It was never down on paper. They could not see it physically. So when they would see it, then they'd say, oh, yeah, this is real. And it's the same thing when you're working a strategy. If you've got everybody working as a team together, you start realizing, hey, we're moving milestones. We're doing it.
What kind of inputs do companies need to be considering, or how do they make sure their strategy is relevant so they stay relevant, so they don't suffer a corporate fatality event, right? Like, what do they have to do to ensure that they have a strategy that's going to move the needle?
There's a lot of things that can be, included in this. First, one of the biggest things is you've got to do your SWOT analysis on a regular basis, especially on external strengths and weaknesses, or external opportunities and threats, because that's exactly what happened with COVID. Okay, we were not prepared for COVID. I don't know if we could have been prepared for COVID, in all honesty. But the recession that we did have back in 2006 and 2009, I knew it was coming. If you're watching the market and you're watching the trends, someone needs to be in charge of watching that and making sure, there's things like when we went through the last recession in the architectural, engineering, and construction market, the big red flags, all right, were we would be proposing in the beginning, back in 2004, 2003, we were proposing maybe against 4 other companies. Within a month, we saw that increase to almost 30 companies you were bidding against. All right. That's a definite red flag. Okay. The next red flag that we saw was public money started drying up, and schools, because we were dealing in public projects, and schools were going more towards renovation than building new schools. So these are red flags. These are trends that are happening that you need to be watching. If you're watching the stock market, if you're watching steel, your what am I thinking? The word. Anyway, watch steel, wood, lumber, things like that. Watch what's happening out in the market. If you see that there's a shortage right now, I go to Starbucks, there's a shortage on cocoa. I can't get chocolate on my latte because they don't have it.
Right.
So watch for shortages in the market when you're
Are those opportunities, though, as well for those people who might be primed to do something about it? Like, if they see that shortage, could it also be an indication of a market opportunity?
Definitely. Look at every change in the trend. Every trend change, you should be looking at, okay, how can I capitalize on this?
Yeah.
Okay? How can I capitalize on this changing trend? All right.
Yeah, I like to say there's opportunity in the turbulence.
A perfect opportunity is this product that I'm getting ready to introduce called the Business Health Check Assessment. That, again, like I said, I would spend 4 hours with my clients. So it originally started with me trying to streamline the process, so I wasn't having to spend so much time with them. Well, one thing led to another, and we're now taking it to market. All right. But the reason that I started thinking about taking it to market is because when I do my research on early stage, micro, small businesses, there's not a lot of data out there. Okay,
Mm.
the data that's out there is for your mid-sized small businesses, 500,000 or above, maybe 50 to 500 employees, but there's not a lot of data other than failure data that's out there for micro businesses. And
Mm.
so I said, okay, if I put this database together, this assessment together, as I'm collecting the data from these companies, I can strip out the personal data, keep the measurements, the actual data, and develop reports so that now I can turn around and deliver these reports out to the market so that now we have data on
Mm.
micro businesses. So
That's
there's always things that you can do to capitalize on changing trends.
mm. No, that's really insightful. I was part of a leading for the future class within a company I worked for, and we had to look at, what are the opportunities that how could this company differentiate themselves and continue to capitalize on new areas. And ironically, one of the things we said was the same thing: go desensitize this healthcare data and go sell it to schools for research. Make sure there's no identifiable information, but just the trends could help these schools understand maybe progression of healthcare costs, their disease, how the disease progresses against then the hospital bills, et cetera. So it's really good to kind of pivot and see what's a natural fit to what you're doing already that then you could just further capitalize on.
No, that's exactly it. The reason that I put the MarketAtomy Academy together, okay, was because of the fact that the number of failed businesses, not only in the US, but across the globe, okay, but the number of failed businesses is directly related to what they don't know about business. All right. There's a lot of reports out there that businesses fail because of underfunding, because undercapitalization, poor management, those kind of things. But what it really boils down to is if they knew what they don't know, they could manage to find the money or plan a strategy for getting the money. They could manage to find the teams that would help them launch that business and grow it. Same thing with larger businesses. There's a tendency in large organizations for that disconnect to start happening when you start to building these divisions or these silos, okay, in large companies. And what happens is when you do that, they all start working autonomously.
Mm.
And then you'll have different procedures and systems and things like that for each division, which doesn't benefit the company at all. So by building overall systems and methodologies within the company, and then maybe you get together with the heads of those divisions periodically and say, hey, here's what we're using. How can we do this and streamline the whole process so that when we have to cross divisions, you're not operating in a vacuum.
Yeah, having a common shared services. So, that is one client we have that we're helping with them execute their strategy. That's exactly, they want to keep their business units nimble and somewhat autonomous in the sense to be able to go out and compete and not have this bureaucracy behind them. But on the flip side, they're all in similar businesses, so the shared services should be the same across them. So that should, in fact, actually make them more nimble, and in order, because now you aren't having to reinvent the wheel. You can leverage things that have already been done. The people higher up can move from business unit to business unit and understand what's happening there, while each one can have their different, like, let's say, go-to-market strategy, right? So it's common shared service, but a different go-to-market strategy.
Right. And when you think about it, okay, when we talk about benchmarking, immediately we start thinking benchmarking against the competition. But you can also do internal benchmarking against divisions. Find those divisions that are, performing extremely streamlined and profitable and everything, and find out what they're doing and benchmark them against one that may not be doing as well, so that they can learn from each other.
Absolutely. Let's take it back though. Back to the beginning of writing a strategy, and there's a lot of things that have been around for ages. SWOT is one of those tools that have been around. I don't know what, since the 70s, 60s. Yeah. And your vision, mission, values. That's all been around for quite a while. But the new thing that we hear about is, and I've heard it two different ways, is either the why or the purpose. Right. And how important is that? I mean, a company is going along, they've had this vision, mission statement maybe for 50 years. They've never defined a purpose. What does that mean to them? Do they need one?
Yeah. It's the engine that runs everything, in all honesty. When you look at what you do and why you do it, okay, if you're really bought into it, the passion comes out. And that passion is what attracts the customers. All right. It's not the value of the product. It's not the benefits of the product. It's how you come across. It's that passion that comes across. And that's what connects to them first. Then they'll look at the benefits, and they'll look at, what you have to offer and compare it to others. But again, sometimes these companies, these buyers, these consumers would rather buy that passion and than they would a high-end product that they can't connect with.
Right. Okay. So when you think, I've spent a lot of time thinking about what's my why and then what's our organization's why. And I landed on, getting shit done. I mean, I couldn't find an even better way to say it, but that's really what it's about. I love to get shit done. I love to be like, here's where we are, here's what we need to be, and here's all the steps that we need to take to achieve that. But there's not, but when I say that, I feel like there's still something missing. Like there's some sort of altruistic thing missing, because when I was studying what Simon Sinek says about the why, he was talking about how people like Steve Jobs and Microsoft, Bill Gates, like their why is extended beyond just their organization, right? So Bill Gates, his why has driven him now into the charitable industry, and he's still trying to do the same thing. And I can see that for myself as well. Like I've thought about starting a charity, and it was about I want to start a charity that enables underprivileged kids who are like high schoolers to be able to achieve the career that they want. Right. So it's still about kind of getting shit done. But like I said, I feel like it's missing some sort of
I've got I'll guide you on some of this, okay? But first, let me just give you an example, okay? For my company, MarketAtomy, okay? I've got MarketAtomy LLC, which is my main company. And then I have the Academy, which is a division under MarketAtomy. Since day one, MarketAtomy has been all about micro, small, solo entrepreneurs, because in my heart, I see them failing. I see the numbers of them failing. I see the psyche of them, it just drains them. It depresses them. It affects their families, everything. And so my long-term vision, okay, which is my why, is I want to turn around the number of failed businesses. Because by turning around the number of failed businesses, that's only going to improve our GDP here in the United States. It's going to improve our labor force, and it's going to improve the psyche of the business owners and their families, because they're going to see them accomplishing something. Okay. There's been an 83% chance increase in new business applications since the beginning of COVID. So we are looking at a major issue 2 years down the road if 70% of these businesses go under. So where I'm going with this is, what is it? Why did you get involved in what you do? What is it that drives you other than just getting shit done? Okay. Why do you enjoy it so much?
I mean, it's really about seeing the vision come to fruition. And it really all started with seeing projects that fail or struggle, and they don't need to. Like, projects don't have to be that hard. But it's around not having the right leaders in the project to guide it along to conclusion. But, I like that feeling of accomplishment, though, when we get something done.
And that's your personal why. Okay. That's your personal why. But the company why is where we want to get to. Okay. There's two types of whys. There's what's in it for me, meaning you, and what's in it for my clients. What's in it for society? Yeah. Okay. What are you doing with your business that's going to help society in the long run? Okay. It's going to help businesses streamline processes.
Yeah.
It's going to help businesses make more profit.
Exactly. Yeah. I kind of,
you need to be thinking about it. Yes.
Yeah. I've said, I guess, that we believe that projects don't have to be so hard. They can be more successful. And in order to survive and achieve goals, companies have to get things done. Like, they have to get these projects done. There's an ROI attached to them, or some sort of benefit, that they're expecting. And in order to realize those benefits, they've got to get it done.
Right. It boils down to getting it done. And there has to be those project managers who are able to do that. You know. But like I said, what is it that what you're doing, getting shit done, how is that going to help society or help the entrepreneurial ecostructure? How is it going, how's it going to, in your mind, think about what are the benefits that the customers are going to get out of it? And how's it going to change how things look down the road? What is that change you're going to make?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. So you can see, though, I guess, a lot of people probably get, find that challenging, like, even to get to where I got. And obviously there's some room for improvement there, but it's, it was challenging. So how do you people go through this, and how much of the organization is involved in this, trying to figure out the why, the company's why?
Well, I mean, when you're trying to figure out the why, okay, that's primarily going to be your C-level. Those are going to be the owners of the company, the people who are already owned into it. Okay, it may be one person, it may be three people, whatever. For them, because it's their passion that started the business to begin with. All right, so they're the ones who are going to be able to communicate better what that vision, that incentive is that's out there. What's that long-term exit strategy? So with that, now communicating it to everybody else is going to be a process, because as you go down in employment level, each one's going to own a certain part. Each division manager is going to own a different part. And you have to have a nice mix of soft and hard skilled individuals. Okay. Because not everybody can be a visionary or an ideologist or something like that. Okay. The ideologists should be the owners of the company. Those are your ideologists, but they need to be able to rely on their directors and the actual customer service people to relay to them what the customer expects, because that customer experience is what is ultimately the goal behind any company. Because what you want to do is you want to turn those customers into advocates and let them become your sales force on the back end.
Absolutely. So you got your why, you got your vision, mission, values, all of that goes together to help kick off that strategy. And then you had mentioned earlier, when you were talking about the strategy, the criticality of reviewing it on it sounded like maybe quarterly basis, maybe it's more frequent. Talk a little bit about that and why that's so important.
Right. As far as a intense monitoring, do it on a quarterly basis, but you're going to still want to look at your report card every month. Okay, we've got these goals for this month. And so what are those key performance goals that we've got for the month, and how did we hit them? So you want to look at it monthly so that you can make any adjustments. But then also quarterly is when you really sit down and you evaluate, because if after 3 months you haven't seen one of those key performance indicators, doing what is expected, obviously there's an issue, and you have to go back and pivot and figure out, okay, where is the gap? Why is this not working? And that's where you can have these experts that are there, because having somebody who is apart from the internal and being able to look at that strategy and tell you where those issues are.
Well, and so let's say you are stuck somewhere on the strategy. I actually had that as a question, was like, you've set your goal, you've broken it down to what exactly, maybe even on a weekly basis, what has to be done, to hit that goal, at least from a revenue number, or maybe it's number of sales contacts or something, right? You've broken it down into a metric that can be measurable, and you're not hitting the metric. Then what do you do? I mean, like that you're stuck, and this is like a strategic imperative. If you don't do this, your company's going to fail. How do you figure out what else to do?
Obviously there's gaps, and that's why you're not meeting those metrics, and being able to identify those gaps. And what a lot of companies don't realize is the interdependency that goes into all of the key performance indicators. Okay. If you're not meeting those numbers, are you not meeting those numbers because maybe your product has become, or service has become, obsolete out there in the market, and you need to revamp or rethink your offerings? Or maybe your messaging is just not getting across, and it might be time to hire somebody an expert who can take an outside viewpoint into what you're doing. I mean, I've just recently hired a team that is helping me with my strategy, because I can't be my own strategist. You can't be your own strategist, okay? Number one. So they are working with me and evaluating all of the materials that I have and everything to help me put together a go-to-market strategy for my academy. So it's a matter of you being able to break it down and identify where those gaps are. That's where I don't know if I've said anything yet, but I have a new product that we're introducing called the Business Health Check Assessment. And the Business Health Check Assessment assesses existing companies across 20 different KPIs. And these KPIs are all interdependent upon each other. And then once they take the assessment, they get a score back in 5 different areas, which is the operational strength of the company, the financial strength of the company, the sales and marketing strength of the company, the product service viability within the market, and then finally the overall strength of the business and the team, the management team. So they get scores in those 5 areas, but I can look behind in the 20 different KPIs that they responded to, all right? And I can pretty much start pinpointing where those gaps are and why they're not able to move forward, and whether it's messaging or whatever, hopefully we will be beta launching that product this coming month in September. And this is the first phase, which is a very simplified yes, no, don't know, what the hell are you talking about type thing, with the questions. But phase 2 will incorporate AI and take the assessment takers on a journey, based on what their responses are.
Yeah, that's great. So with that health check, and I mean, that's, I guess, one of the things that we even use on projects, right? When we look at failing projects, is we have a project health check, because same kind of thing, evaluates across the criteria, these standard things that they have to do, and where are they dropping the ball. But it also sounds like the value is kind of that independent review, like that it's hard to look in the mirror, I guess, and see what you truly look like.
Yep. And that's exactly it. And this assessment is designed to tell them, look, it's not as good as you thought it was, or you're doing great, that type deal. Is to give them an honest viewpoint of where they are with their company right now and what it is they don't know. They don't know because even existing companies are not monitoring what needs to be monitored. They didn't think about certain things. And then the other thing is your teams, your people, are they in the right position? Because rather than just the company itself, we got to be looking at the people. And are they positioned in the right place? Are you forcing them into a role that they just don't feel comfortable with?
Yeah. Or that they can't be dependent upon for because they just don't have the skill set. Yeah. It's one of the things that I think is a major dissatisfier is the company's ability to quickly move on poor performers. But that moving quickly doesn't mean necessarily firing, but it's also just about like really what you're saying, assessing that person's skill set and understanding where they may be a better fit into the company, because nobody wants to show up and do a bad job, or at least not very many.
Right. And this is where, you've heard it's an old term called cross training. Okay. This is where cross training comes in. This is where you have employee training that you do, because, there will come a time where these stars will come out. These stars will start coming out with, I remember when I was working with an architectural firm here in Orlando, and they used a specific CRM called Deltek. I don't know if you've heard of it. Okay. And Deltek was a very involved platform that was not customizable. All right. But what I was able to do was to go in and working with the Deltek team, be able to go in and customize some things. I'd never done any of this. But once they found out what I was able to do, it was like, the whole thing opened up. Then they started getting crazy about what they wanted. But,
as they do.
But the thing is you start seeing these stars start coming out, and you need to be watching for them and allow them to take the lead. Allow them to take the lead. Don't hold them back. If they've got some ideas, let them express them. How things will be, because they are the ones in the trenches. They are the ones who understand what the customers need or what's going to make their job so much easier, rather than just, say, well, we've got a system here. Yeah, you may have a system, but it may be antiquated.
Right.
So
last question before we wrap up is, so with small business usually wants to scale. Large businesses, maybe they want to expand in a market or expand into new markets. When you're thinking about their strategy and approaching that challenge, where do companies fall down? Where do they miss? Where do they not really consider when they're looking to scale or expand into new market opportunities?
Being realistic. Being realistic. When I ask customers, my clients or whatever, what is the revenue goals that you want to reach for this year? And they come in and they say, okay, I want to meet 3 million this year, and they're only at, say, 1 million. How are you going to reach that 3 million mark? Because if it's just standard 3% growth or 5% growth, you're not going to be able to do that. Are you introducing a new product? Are you introducing a new service? Are you packaging things differently? How are you going to meet that revenue goal? Changes. What changes are you going to put in place? It can't be the same old, same old. So realistic goals is the first thing. The second thing is keeping an eye on, if you're expanding internationally or geographically, let's put it that way. If you're expanding geographically, you want to make sure that you have a strategy in place to manage the growth, okay? The production, the service, all right? I've got this academy that I'm launching. I have already got plans in place for customer service, because when we first really start pushing out this academy, there's going to be problems.
Mm.
You know? So making sure you have the resources in place to manage the load that's going to come in. You know, things like that. Okay. It's not just looking at the revenue. I'm going to shoot for this amount every month. You know, when they take with my course that I do, the strategic planning course that I do, okay, in the very beginning, in the macro level, we're going back to historic numbers and we're breaking down, okay, where was your highest profit margin in your revenue streams? And where is your loss leaders? You know, things like that. We break it down so that we understand, you know, where the profit margins and the revenue dollars are going to come from. And then we start breaking down as far as what are your high peak periods and your low periods, so that we can introduce, you know, and diversify our revenue streams so that we're not caught at a dip and nothing else is coming in. We're thinking ahead is what we're thinking.
Absolutely. So the last question I ask everybody, my wrap up question is, when in the context of strategy, what 3 tips do you have for people to help organizations avoid a, you know, mortality event by leveraging a strategy? How do they avoid a mortality event by leveraging their strategy?
Hire a strategist. Hire somebody who can oversee the process, okay? Because you're too close to the issues. Okay. So it's got to be somebody who is separated. Okay. Secondly, monitoring on a regular basis. All right. Not only monitoring internally your strengths and weaknesses, you know, and partnering with companies that can beef up those weaknesses, you know, and vice versa, but monitoring the market. Watch your changing trends. Stay ahead of them. And then finally, celebrate the small wins. And make sure that your employees know that they're doing a good job and celebrate with them.
Yeah, get that momentum.
You got to keep their momentum going. You got to keep them up, you know. Yes.
Well, Danna, it's been so nice having you. Can you tell people how to get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Well, I'm on all the social media. If you want to get in touch with me, reach out to Danna Olivo on LinkedIn. Facebook is MarketAtomy, Twitter. Also, you can go to MarketAtomy, MarketAtomy.academy, and you can reach me through that, or just marketatomy.com.
Great. Thanks so much for being a guest with us.
No, thank you.
And thank you to all our listeners. And until next time, stay healthy.